there, folks. Welcome to the GM's Alcove. Got another episode to my refight of the Battle of Tifernum. This time we're going to finish off turn 4 and get into turn 5. And you guessed it, we're going to finish off the battle in this episode. We're going to see who wins. Is it going to be the Samnites? Is it going to be the Romans? And up to this point, it's been up and down, really, throughout the battle. But I think the Romans are starting to get an edge on the Samnites. Proving to be quite difficult for the Samnites to come back and reply to the advances of the Romans. And we're going to see in this episode just if they can do that. Take it to the Romans and defeat them. We shall see. Folks, let's jump into this battle, get some dice rolling, and enjoy the Battle of Tifernum. Okay, and there we go. Herennius is finished. In his initial order phase, he basically did some regrouping of the line over here. In fact, let's take a look at that. Kind of get a better view of what's going on here. During his initial orders phase, he straightened up this line. He did some recoveries. He did do a rally attempt right back here. Rallied that unit. And that was about it. He didn't attempt a line command, which basically kind of limited what he can do later on with momentum. But he thought about this. He got momentum, and he decided to throw his troops forward. But I did think about holding them back and letting the Romans come to me. That would probably take the game to another turn. Maybe. There is some routing units on the table, which could end this battle. But thinking that way, maybe this is a rear guard. Maybe Ignatius is deciding to leave the battlefield. So we're going to throw our troops forward, slow the Romans, or maybe luck out and do some massive damage. That was not to be, really. Of course, here is Herennius. He has a charisma of 1. He'll add that to his die roll when he rolls for combat, which was against this unit. It was to no avail, and these units were marked as engaged, drawn combat, basically. Same thing over here in this separate combat, but they had some success here. And if I remember correctly, what happened is both these Roman Hastata units were taken to 1 under their TQ of 6, and they did not initially rout. However, that calls for that special TQ test for being in the zone of control of an enemy. The conclusion of the shock there. They got to make that TQ test, if you remember. They failed. Both of these units failed and ended up routing instead. And yeah, that was that. And these gaps were then filled in by the Samnites. Nice TQ7 units. Again, these are main line units, so they're a little bit better, kind of like the Principe. So they advanced, took the flank of these positions here. This unit did reaction facing change. It has no ammo, could not fire. And that was that. That's what it looks like. So there's a limited tactical breakthrough, you could say, of the line. So it was somewhat successful. Yeah, and that was that. And that was it. Of course, Herennius, because he involved himself in this combat, he can no longer use momentum, so he's done. He couldn't go for that additional momentum attempt, but he did throw his weight into this combat. So we'll see what happens. There's potential for success here, but we'll see. It's not looking good route point-wise for the Samnites. So that was that. Of course, next up, Ignatius, who's way back here by his lonesome, and he's the final commander to take action. And there's quite a few options here. I'm going to have to look at the numbers and look what's going to happen with the routed. I mean, like I said, the Samnites are at 103. So that's about 17 points away from withdrawing from the battle. That's a few units. We'll see what happens. And remember, when you attempt to rally a unit and fail it, that unit is gone. Added to the total. So that's another risk you got to take. I guess if you want to try and rally a unit, do it if there's no choice, like the unit's close to the edge and it's going to be gone anyway. Those are some of the things you got to think of. But anyway, this is the situation. And to be honest with you, it's so close to that withdrawal point. Being defensive at this point, I don't think is going to save the day. I think it's an all or nothing point here. Like these guys back here, their movement rate is 5, so they're not going to be able to get into combat, I don't think. These guys in the back line, you can just barely see them. Maybe that's a little better. These guys back here. These are double stacks. 2 units and a hex. So are these two. I don't think they're going to be able to reach. Another option is to look where I can grab some quick kills, but even then, remember, the Roman breakpoint is 150, and they're only at 44. So I think what we'll do is I'll do some recoveries, do some rallies, because I'm going to have to attempt that for sure, and see if I can gain some success here in the combats, and gain some points, and then maybe do some more rallying and recovering. It's hard to say, but that might prolong the battle for another turn, but I don't know. It's getting pretty close. I don't know, folks. It's a great game, great turn of events here. I'm going to show you what happens at the conclusion of Ignatius's master plan to defeat the Romans at the Battle of Tifernum. All right, folks, stay tuned. Wow, that was a tight turn, I'll tell you that. A lot going on. Just concluded turn 4. Ignatius is done. And check the withdrawal and all that other stuff, and nope, victory. Neither army has withdrawn. I will say that the Samnites are currently at 108. They're 12 points away from withdrawing and quitting the field. The Romans, on the other hand, have reached 78, which means the Triarii, these guys down here, are released, and they can now function in the battle. More on that as we get into turn 5. But yeah, Ignatius is done. Now those arrows by some of these units, you can see them down here and over here and over here. They're to indicate units that are routing and that will be routed off the map at the conclusion of turn 5. And I tallied up the TQs of those units, and those routing units alone will not end the battle. So this battle will be decided not just by those units routing off the board, but by destruction of units. And the easiest units to destroy, of course, would be those routed units. And if you look close, there's quite a few of them, especially on the side of the Romans. If you look here, all these are either velites or they're hastades. That hastade line, that front line of Romans, has all but disintegrated. I think pretty much the only remnants of it, except for a few units that have managed to rally, along with some velites, is up there in the flanking detachment force. Those are all the hastati, taken from the 3rd Legion. There's 4 of them, and they are pretty beat up. And there's actually one unit of the 5th Legion up there, the little purple ones. They're scattered around, almost entirely cut off, as you can see right here. And one of the prefecta is also here. And there's one there. So those Romans are all but cut off at this point, thanks to some very aggressive tactics by Ignatius. And let's take a little close-up of his section of the battlefield. There he is, with Herennius back here. Yeah, they did a lot. And once again, much like the initial turn of the battle, the Samnites were very aggressive and pushed hard forward on that one flank, the left flank, and they paid a heavy price for it. And they did likewise here, although that said, I think they were much more successful with this push. All these units right here. This is a mix of main units, and there's still some van units around, alive and kicking. There's one back here as well. These guys are main line. This unit way back here, he came back from the main line. He just moved this turn to kind of help out with what's going on. But yeah, these guys are in very ragged shape. I mean, as far as cohesion, he's at 5. He could take 7, and so on and so forth. And they've been being pushed, and a lot of that has to do with taking cohesion hits for moving multiple times in a turn. These guys, thanks to some recoveries, and I think there might have been a rally in here, or a couple rallies, these guys are in decent shape. I think we're looking at, there's one with 1. Here's one with 3. He's not in the best shape. That said, their TQs over here are mostly 5s, except for this unit back here who has a 6, and he currently has 2 cohesion hits. These guys aren't in too bad a shape, and That's where Stadius' position is. Stadius, kudos. He pulled off a lot this turn. He did a lot in pushing and putting the pressure on the Romans' left flank, and which ultimately led to the destruction, practically, of the Hastati line over here and over here. So yeah. And of course, you can see the Principe of the Romans committed to the battle at the moment. They've got a lot more they could bring forward. And I think that's the biggest fear of the Samnites at this point. Samnites have to do some recovering. There's no doubt about it, no question about it. The Romans have a lot of fresh Principe, which are good quality armored troops. They're going to be pushing forward. And that's going to tell the tale, I think. But yeah, I'm not too sure what's going to happen with the cavalry battle. It's back and forth, really. The Samnites are down to one heavy cavalry unit. They started with two. The second one left the battlefield after a failed rally attempt. They said, nope, not today. And the Romans have 3 cavalry units remaining. One is depleted with 3 cohesion hits, and the other one is at 4 cohesion hits, but it's not depleted. All in all, Romans have a distinct advantage here. And yeah, Samnites got 1 cavalry, light cavalry unit remaining and a heavy cavalry. So they're definitely got a problem over here. But that said, this back line of main units, there's still quite a few of them. They're still fighting them. I'm curious what I'm going to do with them. And if they can save the day. I don't know. I think the Samnites are going to have to do a lot of recovering, pulling units back, perhaps grabbing a victory where they can get it and get some valuable route points on the Romans. But they've got to be careful. They've got to try and push this turn 5 right to the end, and hopefully take the Romans over that threshold of withdrawal as well, so both sides end up withdrawing at the end of the battle. If that happens, the side that wins is the side that exceeded their withdrawal point the least. So it's getting that tight. So interesting. And so with that, we're going to head into turn 5. We'll go into the Triarii. What are they going to do to play a bigger role in this battle at this point, since they exceeded 75 withdrawal points or route points? They're free to start doing some moving and fighting. I don't want to get overly aggressive with the Romans at this point. We're just going to methodically advance the Principes this line forward. We'll do some routing, but not too much. I'm not too worried about some of those units leaving the battlefield, but you don't want to ignore it either. So we'll see. It all depends on what I have with command resources and their availability. But we will move up the Principe line at this point to join their comrades up here. And we're going to put the pressure on the remnants of the Samnite battle line, which is scattered about up here. Let's take a look. And right there, you can see some of that scattered battle line of the Samnites. We got these guys over here. There's some van units still remaining on the battlefield. They're pretty beat up. These units right here are very fragile. Looking at the Romans, they got Principe up here in great shape. I think most of these units have taken only 1 cohesion hit. They have 7, 8, and 6 TQs, as you can see here, a 6 and an 8 and 7s. The rest of the Principe line will advance forward as efficiently as possible and join them. We are going to attack the Samnites, both locations, and try and finish those units off. If we can destroy them, that's great. That'll be difficult because we've got to kind of cut off their retreats, their route zones, and that kind of thing. But we will put them in route, I am hopeful of. In terms of the cavalry, we take a look over there on the left wing of the Romans. They have the advantage somewhat. These 2 cavalry units are not in the best of shape. The only thing really standing in their way is this unit of heavy cav, TQ6 with 2 cohesion hits. That's it. But those heavy cavalry are nothing to take lightly. It's going to be a difficult position. If we could surround them and destroy them, all the better. Could secure a victory, in fact, in turn 5. And of course, here's Pontius. He's got some light cav back here. I've got some Velites right here from the 3rd Legion still remaining. Of course, Falco cannot command that unit at all. He's limited only to the cavalry. I would have to say it's going to come down to the use of commands, trumps, momentum. I think that's what this is going to come down to. Now, the Romans are in a position to win this turn, but it's not guaranteed. It's going to come down to destroying enemy units. Like I said, the Samnites are at 12 more points, and they withdraw from the battlefield. That could be 2 units, that are destroyed. That's not many. In terms of units that are routing currently, there's 2 units of Samnites way in the back, one right there, and one over here off camera. Right there, you can just see them right there. Those 2 units will be routing off the battlefield this turn. However, it puts them at 119. And remember, the Samnites withdraw at 120. They'll be 1 point away. So that means the Romans really can't win this turn unless they also eliminate an enemy, which can be done. If you could attack some routed units, they can be eliminated and countered as well. So it's still a possibility. The Romans can't sit back and let routed units escape. They have to finish them off. So that's likely, to be honest with you, but we'll see. Like I said, it's going to come down, I think, to the use of momentum and trump attempts. So folks, let's do this. We're going to start off with the tribunes and perfecta of the Romans. They are the lowest in initiative. They'll be going first. There are 5 of them, mostly down here, but the flanking force as well has a tribune. I think with those gentlemen, I'll probably hold back a little bit and try and recover some of those units. I don't want to lose them. And they're kind of beat up to use aggressively, so I think I'll do that with them. But otherwise, Principe, move up, attack, do as much damage as we can, surround the enemy, break through the line, the broken apart line of Samnites, finish off the cavalry of the Samnites as well, and hopefully that'll be it. But we'll see if the Samnites use their trump attempts against successful momentum, if I use momentum. We'll see, folks. I'll jump into this and take it as far as I can and show you what happens. All right, so here we are. We just finished moving all the tribunes and the perfecta, or activating those leaders for the Romans. So all the Romans are done except for Rullianus. And one thing I should mention is if you look up there, you will see that Statius is marked as finished. And that was because of a failed trump attempt. Should have learned my lesson. I failed it. I should have possibly used a better, higher initiative rating commander. I didn't want to do that. I just took a chance. Statius attempted to slow the advance of the Roman Principe line early on because they were being so devastating. They were catching my routed units. He failed the attempt to trump that momentum. And for the most part, the Romans did okay with their momentum rolls, except for a couple spots. So once again, they were pretty lucky. Again, their initiatives for the tribunes and perfecta are 2s or 3s, so that's not very high. So they did get a couple momentums going on here, in which they were able to move forward the Principe line. They did some line commands, a couple recoveries here and there, nothing major. Over there, the detachment there under that tribune, I just realized that one of the units over here is a citizen or a non-citizen unit. That tribune cannot do anything with that unit except make a line command, which he didn't do. He had one orders phase, failed his momentum, and basically just recovered those units, which is what I wanted to do with them. But I couldn't recover this unit, unfortunately. So they did a little recovering. They're a little bit better. Got about 2 hits or so each on those units. They were pretty bad off before. But yeah, the cavalry over here, you can see a little bit of drama going on. Falco managed to surround this last heavy cavalry unit of the Samnites and put it to rout. He did not pursue. He broke off, and he's currently located in this position here with the cavalry unit, Roman cavalry unit right there, which has 2 cohesion hits on it. So he's in this hex, Falco. However, the other 2 units of Romans did actually rout I got them both marked with one routed marker. From the fighting, one failed its TQ must check, TQ check, and it routed, and the other unit just routed due to the combat that it was involved in. Falco attacked with 2 units, one of which was on the flank, his unit that he was with. So he had attacker superiority, and we put that unit to rout, and they're currently back there. So that was the end of the heavy cavalry. They are routing. However, folks, after all that flurry of action by the Romans and a failed trump attempt by Statius, located there, the fate of the Samnites is sealed. They will be withdrawing. They're at 122. And that was mainly due to having some routed units attacked. And of course, when you take cohesion hits, you are destroyed when you're routed. So that was the end of that. They lost a couple units in there. A few units. And on top of that, they will have a couple units routing this turn off the map. So they're going to be well over probably 130 in withdrawal. Their only hope, really, at this point, is to do enough damage to the Romans that they can also force them to withdraw, in which case the side that is higher above their withdrawal rating will lose. So that's the case, but I don't think that's going to happen. The Romans are at 78, and they can take up to 150 before they withdraw. So I don't see that happening. Even if you look at all these Roman units that are routing, most of these will not rout off the table this turn. There's no enemy Samnites near to destroy those units. I think there's only like 2 units that will actually rout off the table. So you're looking at what, maybe 12 points added to 78. Yeah, they're not even close to breaking. But we're going to finish this. The Samnites are up next. We have Pontius, located over there, who's been in command of the cavalry at this point. We'll see what he does. We'll see if he can move that second battle line of Samnites forward to engage and maybe do some damage to the Romans. Highly unlikely. I think maybe the Samnites will do a lot of rallying. We'll see. We'll see, folks. They're not really in a good position to counterattack. The only thing I see is just moving up the second line or just calling it quits. So I'm going to see what I can do with the Samnites at this point. I still have Herennius and I still have Ignatius. They're the best commanders in the battle. We'll see what they can do. We'll see if it makes a difference. All right, folks, let's see what happens. All right, folks, that's it. Turn 5 is complete, and as you can see, there's quite a bit going on yet. You've got a lot of engaged units yet, and that's the result of a lot of pushing forward by the Samnites. Some interesting things that happened is Pontius, way over there, remember he was doing most of the work with the cavalry, shifted his attention to the reserve line, the main line of the Samnites, where all that clump is of routed units. That's where they were. They've since moved forward and joined the fighting. You got a little better look at the fighting, the battle lines currently. Here's a couple of those main line units that came up from the rear. Unfortunately, they were not able to get as far as they would have liked. Most of the units that were engaged up here were already in this line position. Needless to say, Pontius did move those troops forward and did get some troops fighting. Afterwards, Rullianus was back here. He did his best. He did a little bit of rallying, actually kind of unnecessary. He did move up the rest of the troops, put some troops in combat that were engaged already, and he failed momentum. He was not able to get any momentum. That gave some hope to the Samnites with Herennius as well as Ignatius still up. Remember, Statius, I believe, there he was. He was already finished. He didn't get a chance to do anything this turn, which is unfortunate, but Pontius filled in his role for him. Herennius, over here, he was over here. He managed to find his way over to the right, where the flanking detachment was located, over in this location, and he did some combat there as well, trying to do some damage to the flanking force. Unfortunately, some of these units recovered earlier, as I pointed out, but he was able to do some damage, and I believe he took one of those units out. It routed off the table, which was that direction, its entry point, so it was successful in that sense. But you'll see his current position is back there. He's routing away with some of the other troops. Of course, not a major issue at this point. Ignatius then took up the reins of command, and he also moved some troops forward. And at this point, he didn't really focus on rallying the troops because knowing that a battle would be over, regardless, there's no point to rallying those troops because they wouldn't be able to do anything this turn. And highly doubtful, well, for sure, the battle wouldn't go any further than this turn. It was all about just doing as much damage as they could to the Romans, maybe breaking them and winning that way. But that was a lost cause, I think. But I did my best. And unfortunately, Ignatius, depending so much on momentum, failed to get even his first momentum attempt. Like Rulianus, that was it. And this is where the combat is at this point. It was a fantastic battle. If you're new to SPQR, I recommend this scenario. It's from the Barbarian expansion, which comes with the new reprint of SPQR that you can buy. It's the second scenario in the Barbarian expansion, and it's fairly straightforward. Not too large of a battle. That said, many times, especially at the end, I ran out of routed rally counters. I was using things like engaged markers and cohesion hit markers just to represent routing units. So there was a lot going on. You could see them all up there. And there was a lot of Romans, there still is yet, routing away. So I can only imagine when I get into the bigger battles if I'm going to have enough routed markers. But folks, that's just the way it is. I think the Samnites really suffered from bad luck. But even that said, they still did pretty remarkable. They did a lot of damage to the Romans in this turn. I think they went into this. The Romans were at 78 route points. They took the Romans to 119 in route points. So they did a lot of extra damage. You could see all the casualties in the dead pile over here for the Romans. Yeah, it was pretty brutal for them. But I don't think there was any way that Romans could have lost this battle or gotten to their withdrawal point. Their max withdrawal point was 150, and they were up to 119. So they had a ways to go right before that would happen. And the Samnites, their max was 120, and they were taken to 140. So there you go. Well over their route point. So at this point, it's appropriate. Ignatius mounts his steed and makes haste back to the hills. He has lost this battle. I think the flanking force coming on where it did, in that spot there, and remember, it was a bit of luck. I put a little randomness into that. Originally, I wanted him to come up here and rolled the dice for it. Gave myself an advantage for them to come on here. But they still come on somewhere else. In that case, it was right there, and it was a perfect spot. Because if you remember, the Samnites were going to refuse this flank and throw forward this flank, echelon. And this really left them vulnerable to being attacked. They really had nothing here to face off against this flanking force. And of course, their arrival wreaked havoc amongst the Samnites as they started taking TQ hits and so on and so forth. And of course, Rulianus benefited from that. A lot of the units over in this area had cohesion hits removed because of the arrival of those troops. But yeah, there it is, folks. And as you can see right there, Triarii were never used. Very enjoyable. Had a good time. It was a good refight. I think this time around it went the way of the Romans. They're at 119 out of 150. Whether or not they could have historically followed up and pursued Ignatius and finished him off, yet to be said. Historically, of course, they were not able to do so. But who knows? It was good fun. Good what if. I got a little fancy with the Samnites, I have to admit. Trying to attack an echelon the way I did is always chancy with Ancient's armies, unless you got really good command. And I felt I had some good command. I had 4 commanders, and two of them were the best in the game. So I think I took advantage of that. Just a little bit of poor luck on the side of the Sam Knights. If I was to refight this battle again, which I'm sure I will, I'll probably be a little less fancy with the attack and echelon and keep them together and advance as a whole and try that out. I think I feared the Roman cavalry threatening my Sam Knight right flank a little too much. I don't think they were as big a threat, and they certainly weren't once they got in combat. But that said, the Roman cavalry are the only ones on the field at the moment, except for one unit of light cav for the Sam Knights. That's it. Falco did a good job commanding the Roman cavalry, so no problems with that. And looking at this, if it was to go another turn, I think it would go the way of the Romans. They still have a lot of Principe, which are the better units, ready to go, ready to move forward. They took some losses over here. They're really on the brink of routing, but I don't think that would be an issue. I think the Triari committed at this point would save the day, the way you would imagine they would, and this would go the way of the Romans. Hard to say, because they were at 119 out of a max of 150. And I think those Triari would, in fact, save the day. But it was a great fight, great battle, had a good time. And we'll try this again in the future. But we're going to be doing another battle, and I'm going to get into that in my battle vlog, the next episode. I'll talk about that and what the next battle I'm going to play is. A little hint is that it continues and finalizes the Samnian War. So, yeah, you might know what that is if you have the Barbarian expansion. So, folks, I hope you enjoyed. Give me some feedback. Tell me what you think. Great battle. I had a blast playing it. So, until next time, folks, I'll see you again soon. So there you go, folks. That's my Battle of Tifernum refight from SPQR, the second scenario from the Barbarian supplement. Once again, it was very enjoyable. I really had a good time playing this. And I am looking forward to the next scenario, which follows on from this battle. And more on that in my battle vlog. I'll get into all the nitty-gritty details. Suffice to say, it's pretty much twice as big as this battle and uses the full map sheet instead of half of a map sheet in the case of this battle. But yeah. Folks, leave me some comments. Do you want to see more SPQR battles like this, game sessions like this? Let me know. I hope you enjoyed and got something from it. Leave me some comments, some feedback. Always appreciated when I receive those. And that's about it. Folks, stay tuned. My battle vlog will be continuing. I'm going to talk more about this particular game in the next upcoming scenario, as well as some other games I have planned. Like, share, and subscribe. And as always, folks, you guys hang in there. Only going to get better. Take care, folks. See you next time.